Hello and welcome to another meet and greet with the filmmakers of one of the films competing for the Crystal Globe at this year's KVIFF International Film Festival. We have the two men behind the movie Rebuilding, and I'm happy to welcome Director of Photography, Alfonso Herrera Salcedo. Hi. And the main guy, Max Walker-Silverman. Hi.
Ahoy.
Your movie takes place in Colorado after a great fire has destroyed the property, but hopefully not the lives of the local inhabitants. And I would like to start by asking about where did this idea come about? What made you film this particular story at this particular location? And I sense there is a personal story behind that.
Well, the basic question of the film, I think, came from living where I grew up, where my home is, and wondering what the future is going to look like here. It's where I want to live and want to be, but it's fragile and uncertain. And how do you live and move forward in an inherently uncertain place, an uncertain world? And into this curiosity, an event happened. My grandmother's house burned in a wildfire, and to my surprise, along with the sadness of it, there came also a lot of things one wouldn't expect. The land did return in a way, and people did move forward in a way, and my mother began to rebuild there, not as it had been, but in a manner, and it sort of presented a version of a world or a version of the future in which comfort and hope came not from permanence or stability, but to the contrary, from reinvention and reimagination. And that became the fable of this story, of sort of this question of what could our futures look like if we hold on to these things.
During the events that you have just described, were there any really surprising moments for you? Did you think at the beginning this definitely has to lead to something negative, and then the opposite happened?
Yeah, I mean, I remember getting a phone call from my sister who was at that house and saying that there's smoke coming over the ridge and they're evacuating and they're leaving, and that was very close and very scary. And for many months afterwards, I was kind of too scared to go back to that land, because in my memory it was this green, lush, beautiful place, and I knew it wasn't that anymore, and I was scared to see it. But enough time passed that when I did eventually go back, along with the black and along with the burn, there were flowers everywhere, and there was green everywhere, and it was completely different, but also completely fascinating. And I tried to honor that strange experience in the film.
Both this movie and your previous film, Love Song, finds some quite simple links, threads between very genuine relationships. And it seems that is something you are sincerely interested in, and it's like a thread that runs through your movies, and everything is based on this.
Yeah, there are very bad people in the world, but I choose to believe that most people are not, and we all know that there are a million ways to tell a story about good guys and bad guys, but I'm drawn to what to me is slightly more challenging and also more interesting, which is a story all about good guys, or at least all about people trying their best, which is a hard thing to do, trying to tell the truth, which is a hard thing to do, trying to be kind, which is a hard thing to do in tough circumstances, but the most noble effort that there possibly could be. It's challenging in cinema to create tension, drama, all of the things that we usually need to propel us through a film that way, but that to me is a challenge very much worth exploring.
You yourself have before said that all your characters are decent people and they are trying to tell the truth. Did it become some sort of your creative mantra? Did you maybe want to differentiate from other rural dramas that are operating within the bleak and miserable? Did you want to be in opposition to this, maybe partly?
Yeah, I choose to make these movies about decent people. And you need to choose rules, I think, in art and in cinema. And there's been a lot of work that explores rural places, poor places, forgotten places, whatever word you want to use, that follows what I think are all too predictable dramas. There's a version of this film that's all, you know, it's about drinking and fighting, and those things exist in the world, but there's also other things. There is also beauty, there's family, there's kindness, and maybe living there, growing up in there, I see that enough that I know it's real enough that it deserves being on screen.
Are there any other filmmakers that you feel especially close to because of them trying to do something similar? Or maybe not necessarily filmmakers, but also other artists, writers?
Gosh, I think, you know, I remember like just watching certain movies by like Aki Kaurismäki, who's maybe most famous for how formally unusual his cinema is, but what really struck me in his movies is how all the characters are kind of always redeemed. And even if they have conflicts, it's not because they're bad people, it's just because the world is tough and funny. And I've found that very inspiring. And I also, you know, songwriters, I think, like songwriting, country music, folk music, the songwriting tradition is in the West and Southern US is like all about people having a tough time, like just because that's the way things are, and usually with a sense of humor and a sense of love. So that's the sort of stuff I really grew up with and cherish.
I would definitely like to get to the music selection, but before that, maybe let's discuss the creative process as such, the shooting, and let's start with the locations. They are extremely well inhabited, and they add a very important element to the movie, obviously. And my question is, how did the location scouting go about? Whether these were places you actually knew and wanted to shoot there, whether these were your childhood spots or not. And then, Alfonso, at the point when you selected the locations, what was the communication between the two of you as how to shoot these places?
Well, to answer the first part of your question, yeah, it's all southern Colorado, which is where I live and grew up, and this particular film is shot in a part of the state where I grew up going to play soccer games and camp, and was very familiar, but maybe slightly different enough to still be kind of inspiring. And you know, I work with a great production designer named Juliana Barreto, and we were able to spend a lot of time just traveling, driving, looking, meeting people. It's nice to shoot movies where they actually take place. And then there's the layer of art put on top of all of that, and the layer of imagination, and that's sort of the funny dance between reality and artifice that you're always living within making a film. You are out in exactly the place that this happens, but you choose all the colors. It's a kind of strange labor, but we wanted it to feel at once very dusty, very honest, very down to earth and real, but also very beautiful with the possibility for magic, I think. And Alfonso, that kind of goes over to you.
No, I mean, I guess in choosing the places, like Max is saying, he, along with the producers and Juliana, you know, they had the time to scout. It's a very remote place, so they had time to go. So when I jumped in the project, certain possibilities of locations, like the FEMA camp were selected, and then it's a matter of technicalities to be able to make them work for the story. So I mean, he showed me a couple of places where he said, there are beautiful moments here. How many of those can we get a day in this, with the theme of hope with the movie? So you just have to select. So we, that's basically how we went.
Yeah, I remember we spent a lot of time at each location designing things and thinking about things based on the path of the sun.
Yeah, orientation of the sun. The main things that when you're shooting, in the natural, location that you have to consider. Yeah.
How big was, in fact, the crew for the movie, and did it consist of a group of friends, or do you have a constant revolving group of people that you like to work with?
Yeah, like any nice community, it's a mix of very old friends and then new ones come along at the perfect moment always. I've worked with Alfonso, Juliana, our good friends Ramsey, Bashur, Jesse Hope, Dan Janvey for many years now. A lot of us went to film school together. I grew up with some of these people in Colorado, and then the crew is kind of a funny mix of, in this case, like local kids who were studying theater and stuff like that. Some great independent filmmakers out of New York City. And it's not a big crew, and we're very used to each other and used to this place, and I think able to work efficiently, and we try to have a nice time together.
Going back to the theme of music, you mentioned country music, which definitely sometimes tells similar stories as your film does. Are you a fan of country music?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, yeah, specifically, like, I don't know, there's a slightly cliched term of like outlaw country, but this is like whatever, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, or like the Byrds. There's also like a California version of it. It's like, yeah, and these are cool traditions, and it all kind of links and goes back into blues, gospel, Black American musical traditions, soul. I really like the stories that are told in those sorts of songs and in folk songs and in folklore, I like the versions of masculinity often that are in these songs that can be gentler and softer. I like the sense of humor in these songs that can be very affectionate. So yeah, I'll listen to this music a lot while writing and sort of hope that whatever I'm feeling while listening to it comes through on the page somehow.
What is your thought process behind whether a scene needs accompanying music or not? Because if I'm not mistaken, the finale is silent, but otherwise, meaning there's no music playing over it. And at other places, obviously, there's quite a lot of songs and music in the movie. How do you decide whether, because that's the post-production stage, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think there's rules to this sort of thing. It's really all about feeling and gut, which is hard to try to retain some honest reaction to what you're putting together enough that you think you know what it needs, and then all you can do is try things and see if they work and see if they don't. Sometimes the music is helpful to underscore what's happening in a scene. Sometimes you're looking for it to contradict it slightly or to complicate it. It can be helpful to knit together separate locations, separate themes, separate conversations in a film. And sometimes it's also just very nice, and I like the music and I like listening to it, so maybe sometimes that's why it's there.
When we meet Dusty, the protagonist of the movie, he's already separated from his wife, and the story of the film doesn't go into the details of what happened before. But I'm curious to know whether you actually had a backstory, at least in your mind, for this character in terms of what happens outside of the movie.
To me, one of the most important things about this film was to create what is kind of a story about divorce that's not about the dramas of divorce, and that's not about the separation itself, but rather two people who, despite the differences they might have had, that find a way to be parents together and are doing so both with the best intentions, even if it's tough. The movie gets there, even if it doesn't start there. And, you know, while it's not at all an autobiography, that's also, you know, I came from that kind of upbringing, as many people did. And in this case of the film, I think of these as two people who were together very young and loved each other and probably still do, and have a child together and care for that child together, but their partnership was at an end. And that's compelling to me, of what do you do then when you're moving forward with a fundamental division, but also sort of like a unity of love.
At what point did Josh O'Connor jump on board of the project? And as for the other casting, were there any specific qualities you were looking for in the actors being playing Colorado residents?
The actors really span countries and types. You know, we have people from the UK, from Australia, a lot of them from Colorado. We have people who had acted before, a lot of people who had never acted before. I think what we were looking for is like people who were both very tough and very gentle at the same time, which underlines the whole story. And started with Josh just because he's really able to inhabit those things. He's very able to carry a lot of weight and a lot of gravity, while retaining a lot of fragility. And that's what his character is in, this like sort of, there's a rigor to the masculinity of that world. But it was key to always retain the tenderness underneath. And so he responded to the script and responded to the ecology in the story and the community in the story. And even though he's from a very different world, those are things that rang true for him. And built out from there. Megan Fahey's just a phenomenal actor, just like so good and smart as a performer. Kaylee Reese was wonderful to work with because, for many reasons, including that she came from boxing originally and was able to sort of bridge the worlds of professional actors and non-professional actors. And then most of the rest of the cast are locals who you just meet or have known or are friends with, and you kind of just can't help but want to put people in a movie. Oftentimes it's fun to do, so we do it.
My final question deals with the decision to have the international premiere of your film here in Karlovy Vary, which we are obviously very happy about, but apparently there's been some consideration before this happened. So what made you and the producers, I guess, decide to come here with the film?
This is just a great town and a great festival, and ever since I was here 3 years ago, and I've wanted to come back ever since, and wanted to eat the duck and go back in the hot water and be back with audiences that are so kind and thoughtful, and it's just a nice place to be. You work for a very long time on these things, and then the little part of them that's actually coming out into the world is very brief, so it's nice for it to be in such a warm and beautiful and thoughtful place as Karlovy Vary. Very happy to be here.
Well, we are very happy that you came back. Thank you so much, Alfonso, Max. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.